This is from The Intercept. At DNC, the squad warns Democrats to wake up to the threat of AIPAC. It was Jamal and I this time, said Representative Cori Bush, who was ousted by AIPAC millions. But who is it going to be in 2 years?
Members of the squad are speaking more directly than ever about the role that pro-Israel lobby played in silencing critics of Israel's human rights abuses in Congress, as well as Democrats' complicity. As the Democratic National Convention entered its final day in Chicago, the topic of the war on Gaza and the role of the American Israel Public Affairs Committee in elections have been largely absent from the main stage. No Palestinian speakers got time on the dais, despite the protest efforts from the uncommitted movement this week. Instead, the conversation among Democrats about pushing for a permanent ceasefire in Gaza, an end to U.S. weapons shipments to Israel, and the party's role in allowing AIPAC to shape its primaries has been taking place outside the United Center, where progressives held protests to hold convention delegates' feet to the fire, and victims of AIPAC's political campaigns were on hand to add their voices to the demonstrations. Their role in my primary was egregious, Representative Cori Bush, Democrat from Missouri, who was unseated amid an onslaught of millions of dollars from AIPAC, told The Intercept during an interview at the DNC. It was largely deceptive because they were trying to hide their affiliation as far as the reason they needed to run someone against me. But after my opponent won, they wanted to boast the win. AIPAC spent more than $25 million to unseat Bush and Representative Jamal Bowman from New York in primaries this cycle. The outside spending from AIPAC and other pro-Israel groups made the two races the most expensive Democratic House primaries in history. AIPAC's attack ads against Bush concealed the group's sole policy priority is Israel, Bush said. Not one ad spoke about Israel. Not one ad spoke about Palestine, she said. Not one ad spoke about anti-Semitism. The pro-Israel campaigning against members of the squad has largely focused on black members of Congress, Bush, Bowman, and Representative Summer Lee from Pennsylvania, Ilhan Omar, and had all emerged as targets of pro-Israel spending, though AIPAC itself begged out of the latter races. In Bush's race, AIPAC's Super PAC aired an ad that distorted her features by elongating her face, a distortion Bush characterized as racist. They were bigoted, they were racist, and it was allowed, Bush said. If you're not racist, don't do racist things. They have shown themselves to be racist. She pushed back against the idea that the group can't carry out racist campaigning because it backed a black opponent, St. Louis prosecutor Wesley Bell, in her race and a number of other members of the Congressional Black Caucus. To switch out a voice speaking truth to power, Bush said, for someone who is more palatable is what they're doing. The person who ran against me was okay with the lies, she went on, referring to Bell. He would have run on who he is, what he plans to do, and the differences between us. But instead, he did not do that. What he did was deceive the people of the 1st District of Missouri. The Democrats should be concerned about AIPAC's role in the party's primaries, Bush said. That was just my race, she said, but what will they do next? Because what they're ultimately trying to do is move Democrats farther to the right.
Oh, they don't have to worry about that.
I want Democrats to realize it was Jamal and I this time, but who is it going to be in 2 years? Bush was not the only member of Congress to speak out against AIPAC at the DNC. Lee and Ramirez from Illinois gave remarks criticizing the pro-Israel lobby at a Wednesday evening documentary screening about Gaza. Both Lee and Ramirez told The Intercept that it was time for the party to realize that spending by outside groups was a threat to all members, not just progressives. The event took place at the historic Grace Episcopal Church, as programming started across the town at the United Center, and delegates and convention attendees awaited speeches from Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, former President Bill Clinton, and former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Inside the film screening, audience members cried while watching the Fault Lines documentary that recounted the stories of Palestinian families trapped in Gaza. The Rejavs had 7 members of their family, including their 6-year-old daughter Hind, killed by Israeli forces after being trapped in a car for hours. Ramirez told the audience that shortly after Bowman's loss, her colleagues in Congress voted for a bill that negated the numbers of civilian deaths coming out of Gaza. Ramirez said one colleague told her that they voted for the bill because they didn't want outside groups to Jamal them. After the event, Ramirez told The Intercept that the party should be worried about the influence AIPAC is having on its primary elections. Every single Democrat should be concerned that 1 or 2 super PACs were able to concentrate $18 million to take out a Democrat, and that so much of that money came from Republicans, Ramirez said. You put $18 million against Leader Jeffries, Hakeem Jeffries, the top House Democrat, he's in trouble. Every one of us is in trouble. What AIPAC did should be criminal.
It should be, because we shouldn't have lobbying groups, because you should be getting support from the people, not from corporations. Also, what a waste of fucking money.
All right, give me $18 million.
Like $18 million just to make sure your candidate wins? Why not put $18 million into your fucking state?
Or state is Israel.
If they invested $18
It's probably
million,
our own money that they're giving back.
fair enough. The elections are so blatantly backed and paid for that it's disgusting.
Yeah, our elections are horrible.
Rigged.
They're horrible.
They're rigged against the people.
All the private money, super PACs, corporations, all that shit is fucking horrible. Speaking out, however, can come with a cost, incurring the wrath of AIPAC and its millions. It put a lot of us in a really tough position, Ramirez says. It makes me wonder, how much do I have to raise before I even start collecting signatures again? Because they will do everything they possibly can to make us vulnerable. On an evening stroll after the screening, Lee warned of the influence of big money in general. Money in politics, whoever is putting it in is never your friend, she told The Intercept. AIPAC spent $4 million against Lee in 2022 and failed to recruit at least two people to run against her this cycle, The Intercept reported. The same people who are funding AIPAC are the same people who are behind any other corporate interest, any other interest that's against the will of the working class people or marginalized people. When we think about why Corey or Jamal were actually targeted, why me or anywhere else, why we're actually targeted, it's not just about foreign policy, she said. This is less about foreign policy and more about the fact that there's a concerted effort to keep power, to keep influence, to keep democracy out of the hands of communities that have been historically disenfranchised. AIPAC isn't coming into this district and supporting a member because they want them to be able to advance the causes of black people, Lee said. AIPAC has targeted Jewish members of Congress in previous cycles, like Representative Andy Levin. The group also targeted former Representative Mary Newman, whose husband is Jewish. This cycle, AIPAC's main targets have been black members. They're giving money to a politician who will still do their will, who will still advance their policy. So at the end of the day, yes, if you're keeping black districts, black communities from being able to self-determine who they want to represent them, what issues they want at the forefront, then that's racism, she said. It doesn't matter whether you have a black friend. Having a black friend does not make you racist, make you anti-racist. Black districts don't have the money to fight AIPAC's war chest, Lee said. What AIPAC knows is that the Bronx, or Mon Valley, where I'm from, or St. Louis and Ferguson, those communities don't have 20 million sitting in them. They know that, and that's the reason why they come into those districts. The threat facing Democrats isn't just coming from AIPAC, Lee said. It's an arms race. It's AIPAC today, it's whoever else tomorrow. There will always be another super PAC tomorrow, because once you create the blueprint, once you pull out the gun, you can't put it back in the holster. Lee said Democrats need to pick a side. If we don't put a stop to this, if we don't lead people in a different direction, we will lose our democracy. Not because of Trumpism and MAGAism. We will lose our democracy because none of us were courageous enough to stand up to the influences that are undemocratic. Oh yeah.
I just fucking hate AIPAC. That's all. I don't even want to talk about them, you know?
Yeah.
I wish they would be demolished as a group.
They should not have lobbyists at all.
Yes.
Special interest in that at all. It should be nothing about the people.
Nope, it's about how much money you have. And that's what it's always about. It's how much money you have.
How much money your company has. Yeah. This is from Common Dreams. Very bad sign for democracy. AIPAC has spent over $100 million on 2024 elections. AIPAC's billion-funded Super PAC has helped defeat two of the most vocal opponents of Israel's assault on the Gaza Strip.
The American Israel Public Affairs Committee, a powerful lobbying group widely known as AIPAC, has officially spent more than $100 million in 2024 election cycle so far, pouring staggering sums into Democratic primary races in an effort to unseat progressive opponents of Israel's war on the Gaza Strip. Citing new Federal Election Commission filings, Sludge reported Tuesday that AIPAC's Political Action Committee had spent $44.8 million as of the end of last month, mostly on donations to political campaigns and party organizations. The United Democracy Project, UDP, AIPAC's Super PAC, has spent $55.4 million so far, bringing AIPAC's total spending this cycle to just over $100 million, surpassing its reported spending target for 2024 races. AIPAC money has already made a significant impact, helping a pair of pro-Israel Democrats defeat progressive reps Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush, two of Congress's most vocal critics of Israel's assault on Gaza in recent primary contests. Sludge noted that UDP's financial support for Bowman's primary opponent, George Latimer, set a record for spending by an outside group on a House election. A very bad sign for democracy that MAGA billionaires are spending this much money to shape our politics, the youth-led Sunrise Movement wrote in response to the new spending figures, referring to the Republican megadonors who have fueled spending by AIPAC-aligned groups. Politico reported in June that AIPAC has been the biggest source of Republican money flowing into competitive Democratic primaries this year. Sludge pointed out Tuesday that billionaire Jan Koum, the former WhatsApp CEO who helped bankroll Nikki Haley's failed presidential bid, is the top donor to AIPAC's super PAC. Other UDP donors in recent months have included the following: David Messer, CEO of Freepoint Commodities, who gave another $250,000 on July 1st, Martin Geller, CEO of financial firm Geller & Company, who gave an additional $268,000 on June 25th, and Frank Blair, equity portfolio manager at Capital Group, who gave an additional $200,000 in May, Sludge reported. While laminating the outsized influence that UDP and other billionaire-funded groups are able to wield in the U.S. political system, some observers have argued that AIPAC's aggressive spending is a sign of desperation in the face of growing public opposition to Israel's mass atrocities in Gaza. A majority of Democratic voters view Israel's war in Gaza as genocide, according to one recent survey. Supporting Palestinian rights is becoming so popular among American voters that pro-genocide groups have to spend over $100 million to hold on, said Beth Miller, policy director at Jewish Voice for Peace. I don't like the way she said that.
Supporting Palestinian rights is becoming so popular amongst Americans, it's like the latest trend.
I don't like how she said that. I don't like the verbiage for that one.
Mm-hmm.
That's just, it's becoming so popular. You mean supporting Palestinian rights is a humane thing to do?
It's the correct position. Yeah. Yeah, we shouldn't have lobby groups at all. We shouldn't have special interests.
I thought we weren't allowed to have that. I thought that was against part of I don't know, the way our elections were supposed to go.
Reagan, Citizens United, a few other decisions that really fucked us politically.
Was him deciding that it was okay for outside groups to control our politics. That's smart.
That's the national security issue. If other countries have control of our government, that's a national security issue.
Oh, do you see them doing a fucking thing about it?
No.
Do you see them ever doing
it? Pockets
anything?
are lines. They don't give a fuck.